Our next speaker is Tim Ingalsbee from FUSI. And Tim, if you're ready to speak, you may start.
All right. Let's see. There, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Well, I sure feel honored to be speaking at this panel alongside the fire chief and the fire marshal. Had you asked me maybe 10 years ago to participate, I would have graciously declined because my interest is in wildland fire, which is fire in wild lands. But Benning has taught us this over the last 10 years, even over the last 5 years, wildland fires can quickly transition into urban conflagrations. And so this is forcing me a little out of my silo and to some healthy discussions amongst wildland firefighters and structural firefighters. And I'm here tonight as much as a member of the community. I live in the flatlands in the middle of Eugene, but the Holiday Farm Fire definitely got me involved. And here's a map of focusing mostly on Western Oregon fires. I mean, the footprints are immense. And it was, 5-alarm fire, 5-alarm wake-up call that even in the middle of the valley and the state's large metropolitan areas, we're living in the fire zone. Even beyond the reach of flames, we were inundated with smoke. And there's much that we can and should do to get prepared for these fires. Now, when the Holiday Farm Fire was going, I excitedly got all my wildland firefighting gear all ready together. My wife, on the other hand, was wisely putting our go bags in our automobile and packing up other essentials. And I was just kind of stoking myself, ready to, defend my house and my neighbors, and was standing outside when, at that moment, a power line transformer exploded just half a block away, and that end of the street went dark. And I realized, wow, we could have ignitions in these extreme conditions right in the middle of the city. So it's a real urgent need for all of us, including in the valley and the big cities, to be prepared for fire. So here's an inconvenient truth. Our 21st century climate is rapidly reducing the effectiveness of our 20th century wildland firefighting strategies and tactics. This is as an image from a California TV news station from several years ago, but it could be like stock photo, recycled every year. Only back then, 25,000 acres on fire was a newsworthy event. That barely registers these days when you have fires in excess of tens of thousands. Now in California, there's a gigafire, over 1 million acres in size. It's just climate change is producing conditions, extremely rapid spreading fires, growing to huge size, encompassing, homes and communities. Yes, we are in the era of reckoning with climate change. And in these extreme conditions, wildland firefighters are just forced to back off and largely burn out, waiting for a change in weather before you can really directly engage the fire's edge with suppressing actions. And we're confronting a paradox, and that wildland firefighting is becoming more dangerous to crews, much more expensive to taxpayers. This will be California's residents' first $1 billion fire season. More damaging to the ecosystem and what we have to do to try to, contain and control fire. All of that, and it's becoming less effective. And in particular, when wildfires transition into urban fires, wildland firefighters have a limited role and capacity in structural fire suppression. And we got to think through that a little bit. And these kinds of extreme events like the Holiday Farm Fire and all those fires in Western Oregon, they are driven by severe fire weather conditions, hot, dry, windy conditions with extremely dry fuels. And the research has demonstrated that almost all of the disastrous urban fires have occurred during these red flag conditions. in which it really is impossible for human beings to stand in the front of a head fire, stop the spread, or put them out. And these were formerly rare events of short duration, but they're becoming far more frequent, far more prolonged, given climate change. So anytime the weather reporter announces, yeah, we have red flag warning conditions, for me at least, now I'm going to read that like a tornado alert, tornado watch, with conditions ripe for extreme events, and these mega fires are almost meteorological events. And as Fire Marshal Linder, was mentioning, wildfires are growing of huge size with phenomenal rates of spread, driven by these blizzard of embers, more so than what we might picture a giant tsunami of flame, crowning out and rolling across the landscape. Is these giant blizzards of embers that each one landing in dry fuels, either in the forest floor or in a home rooftop, can ignite a new fire. And so what's happening in these mega fires is fires are kind of hopscotching across the landscape, leapfrogging across any kind of fire lines or fuel rates. Infamously, in the 2017 Eagle Creek fire, these folks standing on the Washington side of the river marveling at the Eagle Creek fire in Oregon, little did they know that an ember had lofted and started a new fire up the mountain and behind them. No firefighter can improve on the kind of containment line the Columbia River provides on its own. And so it really is forced us to kind of think what we're capable of doing and not doing. As Fire Marshal Linder mentioned, homes are also very vulnerable to small embers and small surface fires igniting them. Homes typically don't burn up, they burn down from the top down, with an ember landing on a roof covered with some dry dead needles, or being sucked into a roof vent, or small surface flames kind of just creeping along the floor right up to the doorstep. This can happen after the main wildfire front has already passed by, and all kinds of combustibles are located in and around and on top of our homes. I took this photo in the Holiday Farm fire area. I'm standing right in the McKenzie Highway, and there's the McKenzie River in the background. Then not 50 feet difference spans the two. And again, no wildland firefighter could improve on a paved highway or a cold river to form a containment line to stop fire spread. This home and a string of others just like it were lost by ember wash, just burning them down. So the key point is we must be prepared for those fires that we can't prevent, because accidents do happen, and those we can't stop because they, unfortunately happen in red flag extreme weather conditions. So this is every homeowner's fantasy. In case of fire, there'll be engines and crews parked in your driveway, air tankers swooping by, and your home will be defended and saved by firefighters. This almost, to me, appears like a staged photo. But, just looking at it, well, I think the roof looks like pretty good. This home is perched on top of a steep slope with very flammable brush, not even 30 feet away. And those power lines in the back make me very nervous, as well as the flame lengths. There's just no crews can stop that kind of flame length. So this is the fantasy, but the reality is that even a single wildfire can threaten hundreds of homes simultaneously, and we're just not able to stop fire spread during these kinds of weather conditions that lead to these urban wildfire disasters. And it's like a chain. The weakest link exposes everyone else. So once a house in an urban cluster or community ignites, it can set up kind of a chain reaction of house-to-house ignitions. These become the urban conflagrations that result in tragedies, disasters, catastrophes. this image on the right, so many just like it, where you'll see homes reduced to mounds of ash, and above them standing are live green trees. Homes can be more vulnerable to ember ignitions than big old trees. And so here we have a kind of strategic dilemma. Should we be sending firefighters to suppress backcountry wildfires? Try to, we'll fight them over there so they don't come here, or should we be focusing more of our resources on protecting homes and communities? And as a fire ecologist, it's pretty clear what we should be doing, because many wildland ecosystems have certain benefits from fire. Forests themselves are rejuvenated by fire. They regenerate certain species of plants. The effects of fire in forests are mixed as opposed to what happens in communities. They're almost purely destructive. So in concentrating suppression crews and resources on the I zone, the wildland urban interface, it's important that we distinguish, three kinds of I zones. There is the classic interface, which is the outer edge of suburbs or urban areas, and everyone has it. Then there's the intermixed zone, which is where you have more dispersed homes, maybe on large lots, 5-acre lots, all in wooded areas or whatever, or small communities, hamlets. And then there's the occluded zone, which includes parks and undeveloped lots within city limits. And even, I have one of those half a block away with, the corridor along Amazon Creek is full of trees and vegetation, other park areas. So again, the I zone isn't necessarily over there. It can also be in here to city dwellers. Whereas the wildland urban interface, intermix, occluded zone is somewhat large, vast, maybe even nebulous. The home ignition zone, very precise. So if we want to focus our efforts on preparing for fire, that makes sense. And that is, according to research, where you get the biggest bang for the buck, as Fire Marshal Linder mentioned. The problem is, you can do all that you can do to protect your own home, but if your neighbor hasn't, their house puts your house at risk. And so I really caution folks to take a kind of doomsday prepper approach. I'll get my home as a fire shelter bunker, and I got me, mine, and the heck you. We really got to pull in this together as a community. It's really responsibility of the whole community. And let's see. So in terms of community solutions, I think we should be advocating for ourselves as this kind of home outward strategy. What I see from policymakers, particularly at the federal level, is dang near every wildfire bill, purported wildfire bill, to prevent wildfires or make the communities more protected from them. It focuses on backcountry areas and fuels reduction strategies that really center on subsidizing commercial timber removal. Take away the trees and the fires won't burn and your homes will be saved. And scientists have deemed that, well, what we've done to date is barely 4% of all these commercial thinning projects to make fuel breaks in backcountry areas ever even interact or intersect with wildfires. Those that do don't stop the spread of them. This is a case in point is the Mount Thielsen fire, giant fuel break project in the national forest near Crater Lake National Park, and it didn't even slow down the spread of that fire. Fortunately, there were no homes in its path. Retrofitting homes or doing the things that Fire Marshal Linder mentioned, that on the other hand increases your probability 90 to 95%. And these are numbers coming out of Jack Cohen's research. So if you're doing one thing, you have barely 5% chance that it may even have any effect on your protection from your wildfire, or something that has over 90% probability of success. What's the better return on investment of limited taxpayer funds and resources? For me, I say let's aim for the bullseye, where our highest hazards and highest values at risk intersect, our homes and communities. Aim for the bullseye instead of indiscriminately, throwing darts all over the board, maybe even hitting the wall. So bottom line is we have the tools and technology and the know-how how to fireproof homes or make them, very resistant to ignition. We don't know how to do that to fireproof forests or shrublands or grassland ecosystems. So part of this home outward strategy, I'm very pleased to see that a bill, and this is the first in my experience, a wildfire bill that wasn't about just logging subsidies. It was about focusing on homes and communities. And Kamala Harris's Wildfire Defense Act of 2020 was introduced last fall. I don't think it's going to go anywhere in this Congress, but there's a link there, and I urge you to check it out, as well as the Firewise communities. Now, this is kind of a voluntary program. I wonder if it should be more of a mandatory program to get whole communities prepared for fire. Other policy ideas I've listed down below, buffing up the resources and capacity of our municipal and rural volunteers who will, really deal with structural fire suppression and help with evacuations. Other things, the neighborhood associations getting involved. This is a great example. I hope more of this happens. Thinking in terms of designating community fire safety zones nearby, school playgrounds, parking lots, things like that, that might be necessary. Smoke shelters for community members. And there's a lot of righteous hard labor going to be needed to prepare for fire, all our homes, communities, whatever. And I'm just thinking, why doesn't every Boy Scout or Girl Scout get a merit badge for doing part of this work? They ought to. School groups and other folks combining, volunteer labor power with some of the specialists and technical experts. I think communities could do a lot to prepare for fire. Bottom line, firefighters need residents to be partners in protecting homes and communities. And so I'm wanting to link, and these are important concepts, community fire preparation, because we can't prevent all wildland fires, but we can prepare for them. And on the other hand, we can prevent urban fire disasters. And large wildland fires, they're inevitable and even necessary from an ecological perspective. Home losses and urban fire disasters entirely avoidable. And so, if we kind of integrate what we're doing, myself, I'm a block captain for, disaster response recovery work if and when needed. I'm thinking in terms of earthquakes. I never even thought about wildfires, but now I'm starting to think about that, and particularly thinking about evacuation routes. Where do we go, and how do we get there? We got to start thinking beyond the major roads and highways. More there are options, and emergency communications. These have broken down time and time again. Folks didn't get the warning. What they got was their neighbor knocking on the door, or the sheriff knocking on the door, saving their life. So we need to think about that. How do we communicate when the system breaks down? And when you think about the community getting prepared for fire, we need to think about the whole community, particularly those who are really vulnerable, those who may lack the capacity to do the kind of pre-fire preparation, the elderly people, disabled, poor families, low-income workers, renters. A lot of the work is centered on homeowners. So what if you're a renter? What can you do? Homeless people suffered immensely from the smoke. And indigenous peoples, communities of color, and youth. These are all members of the whole community. In some ways are the most vulnerable, with the least capacity to do this kind of pre-fire or post-fire work. So last slide, in terms of community solutions, I'm thinking, think big and go bold. Of course, if you're like me, a lot hangs on the results of the election. But this West Side East Wind Firestorm event, it was a wake-up call, a teachable moment, and provides a lot of incentive for proactive action. Thinking maybe in terms of some of this work as infrastructure projects. Lo and behold, if Congressman DeFazio wins his election, he'll be the chair of the infrastructure committee in the House. And some of this activity may be, may be within his domain of getting some funding and support. Many of the things that we have to do to confront the wildfire crisis are also part and parcel of dealing with the climate crisis. And so that's why I really caution, the conventional approach, let's just boost logging on public lands and that'll protect homes on private lands, is not correct, not accurate, it won't work. On the other hand, forests are very vital as part of sucking all that excess carbon out of the sky, sinking in the ground. We're going to need our forests protected along with our communities. So one of our mottos is the sooner we prepare homes to protect communities from fire, the sooner we can restore forests with fire, which is another talk and another topic entirely. But I really appreciate this opportunity to speak, and I too am open to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tim. That was incredibly informative. We too look forward to working with you in the future as we develop our community organization, and thank you so much.